Hey guys, this is Jerry. So I'm going to interview an artist today. His name is Eric Krewson. He actually went to my school, University of Pennsylvania. So let's talk about music. Let's explore the arts. Welcome, Eric.
Hello, thank you for having me, Jay.
Did you get into music really early, or is it kind of like, oh, later on in your life something inspired you?
So I grew up playing music. I started playing trumpet when I was in 4th grade, which I still play. I went to a public school that just happened to have a very good music program. The other curriculum was not great because it was a poor country school, but the music program was very good. And so, I was drawn to it from a young age. And in high school, basically what I did every day, I found that I enjoyed writing. So I would come home from school, go downstairs and write music until dinner, and then write music into the evening. And I guess I've had sort of musical awakenings ever since, like, then I started loving literature when I went to college, but then that infused nicely with the music. So yeah, it's always been something that I love, but it feels like I'm always starting over in a way, so it's a sort of a perennial love.
I see. And when you discovered the joys of writing music, in psychology they talk about flow. It's basically like you almost lose track of time. Was that kind of how you were? It's like you were writing a few songs and then, oh my God, it's 1 a.m.
Yeah, in fact, and I'm not familiar with the psychological field. However, I love talking like the concepts of time in philosophy as well, where, like, industrial time is really not that old. It's only since the 19th century, and so, yeah, time doesn't work. I mean, we don't perceive time in a sort of minutes or seconds way. So, yeah, I absolutely feel, it's elongated and it's much more rich, frankly. That's very interesting to me. Writing and creating, it always takes a very long time, but you're sort of in this other sphere of measurement.
And so, in college, you studied ethnomusicology, right?
I studied musicology.
Oh, musicology. Which, explain to me the difference. Ethnomusicology is when you go to other places and explore the music. Musicology is more kind of U.S. focused. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, it's more like Western. When I was an undergrad, I studied music, and I was in a jazz fusion band, and so I love, which was basically an Afro-Cuban band, and I love doing that. When I went to grad school, I decided to study musicology, just because it seemed appropriate for what I wanted to study with philosophy. And if you're into studying another culture, then you really have to submerge yourself in it. And it's a little hairy because I don't want to, anthropology is really neat, but there are some philosophical problems of, like, when you talk about your music, and it's like, well, they should really just talk about their music. So, studying musicology was a wonderful experience. I'm very glad I did it. It helped me to become a better writer, if nothing else.
It's true. That's true. And I assume it forced you to get in touch with sort of other types of music that maybe you didn't really listen to that much when you were starting out in music, let's say in high school, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So even, when I went into grad school, I studied, I knew I wanted to write about Steve Reich, who's this American minimalist composer who's still living. But while I didn't really like quote unquote classical music, especially the classics from the 19th century. But then when I went to grad school, I had a lot of semiotics courses that were specifically dealing with Schubert and a bunch of the Romantic composers, and I wound up actually really loving it. And I fell in love with opera, and there's a lot of music that I didn't think I would ever love, and now it's very meaningful to me.
Yeah. Me personally, I kind of had sort of the same experience, because I used to listen to classical music kind of just when I needed to relax or when I needed something non-words. But then once I took a music theory class back in college, and it definitely helped me appreciate classical music, because you start seeing all the different, there's a method to the madness, and they definitely put more thought into classical music than, let's say, a modern 4-chord pop song.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting. Schubert's one of my favorite composers. Yeah, everything tends to have meaning. Everything is fraught with lots of contradictions in a really nice human way, and you can draw a lot of meaning out of it. I agree.
And so tell me about your band, the Chairman Dances. When did you guys get started with that?
Sure. Oh, by the way, is it okay that I can't see you on the screen?
Yeah, it's totally cool. I just I have your music queued up, so it's like I'm ready to play it for everyone. So that's probably why, because I'm not in Skype right now. So if for some reason can't play my video.
No, that's fine. I just said it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, good thing you're making sure, because I was a little curious. Like, I thought maybe it would actually the audio would tune out, but good thing we're still hearing each other.
Okay, good. Yeah, the Chairman Dances, I guess I started recording under the name when I was still in grad school, or right before I started, but it was really just a bedroom project, and then I put a band together in the end of 2010. So we've been around, I guess, in earnest probably since 2011, end of fall of 2010.
I see. So wow, that's almost 7 years, if not 7 years.
Yeah, it's been a good run.
Wow. Let me if you don't mind, I'm gonna play a song real quick, just so the audience can hear. And I hope the Skype doesn't tune out. Like I'm playing around with unfamiliar territory. But let's try this. If the Skype cuts out, I'll just call you again.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can hear this while I play it. Let's see.
Bob Dylan dreamed that he saw me. Alive is he, and Calvin thought there's an answer. Bob Dylan dreamed of a white line, or was that Louis and Calvin said?
So that was a song obviously about Bob Dylan. So what was the inspiration behind that song?
Sure. So the song is called Augustine. I wrote that song while I was going to bed, sort of. There's a Bob Dylan song called I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine on this album, John Wesley Harding, that's wonderful. And it's a very earnest song. It's not very Bob Dylan-esque. It's not sardonic. It's just sort of pure and forthright. It says, I dreamed I saw Bob Dylan, and so I thought it would be funny if I responded from Augustine's point of view back to Bob Dylan, but in sort of like a Bob Dylan-y sardonic way. And I thought, oh, that would be funny, and so I got up and I wrote, I think, the first verse, and then I recorded the melody, and then I went back to sleep, and then I woke up and I finished it.
Wow. So you do the voice, of course, and are you doing the instruments too?
So I'm the songwriter for the band, and then I'm the singer, and I play guitar and some other things on the record. I play trumpet and some small things, but there's a proper drummer and keyboardist and bassist.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the other songs on this list. I can tell the Ivy Leaguer in you, because even the titles are pretty deep. Like, there's a song about Jimmy Carter. There's a song about Cesar Chavez. So these are. I expect the lyrics have some depth, right? And I guess tell me about sort of how you came up with songs like a song about Jimmy Carter or a song about Cesar Chavez.
Sure. So when I sat down to write the album, I just was writing songs that I wanted to write. Like that, the Bob Dylan one was, I think, the second song I wrote. But I wrote that, and I wrote a song for Dorothy Day and Peter Morin. And at one point I realized, I guess I'm writing these sort of biographical vignettes. And the other thing that about this is that these are, for the most part, modern, Augustine aside, people who were politically progressive, but then also I realized I was writing about specifically religious people, sort of like a counter narrative to, unfortunately in America, both the people who represent us politically and the sort of loudest voices in a spiritual, in that column, the people are mostly buffoons. And it's not representative of us as a people at all. Like, we are the majority of the same people. And I feel like spirituality, especially with kids growing up, it's sort of like, well, I can either be spiritual or I have to be this horrendous person. But most spiritual people are actually pretty good people trying to just live lives like everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you trying to write songs about that, because it's almost like if you're spiritual but you don't belong to some particular religion, people judge you. So they ask you, hey, do you believe in God? I'm like, I'm spiritual. Like, this is me personally. I'm like, I'm spiritual. It doesn't mean I'm a Christian or I'm a Buddhist or something. They're like, you're weird or something like that.
Yeah, there has to be more room. Like, I actually do identify as Christian, but it's totally cool not to, like, I think there just has to be space for people to do whatever, Like, I want to, for me, I do like the fraud tradition, like, I like learning from that, but, yeah, people just have to have more respect for everyone. There needs to be more respect in every direction, because most of my friends are atheists, and that's cool, and I'm not, and I love them, but yeah, I think creating space is very important, especially nowadays.
Yeah, exactly, and the same could be said also. We almost sometimes, especially people who are very highly educated, there's like a little bias against people who are just religious, like people, let's say, who are Christians or believe in God or something. So we definitely need to have more tolerance to that too. And that's something that I think as I got older, I got better at. I kind of, I think when I was younger, I was definitely like, oh man, religion's the root of all evils. But as I get older, I'm like, but religion a lot of times helps keep communities together. And it just, it's like a growing process. You get to see the world more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, religion, it's something that humans do. And so there's a lot of great, and then there's a lot of bad stuff too. For me, it's always been a goad to do better, and there's been like great movements in our country, like the Awakenings, and now historians are talking about the Third Great Awakening being in the 60s in the African American community, and that's happening now again too with like the Reverend Barber, who's starting to do these movements for the poor. It's only when the people in power hijack it, which can happen of anything. Anytime there's a revolution in the government, as soon as the hands of power get their meat hooks into any idea, it becomes corrupted, unfortunately. And so the people always have to try to fight back against that.
Dude, that's a brilliant point, and I agree. I mean, whenever someone with power tries to take an idea, it could be anything. It could be liberalism, it could be conservatism, it could be religion. It takes on another form, right? And it becomes removed from the individual. It becomes more and more, or less and less authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like reading theology too, and that would, that you just described evil, like which I totally believe in, because it's something that's like outside of us, but sort of controls us unknowingly or unwittingly. We are unwittingly controlled, and I agree. Yeah, power is a very bad thing.
Yeah. I had a cousin in China, and Christianity is kind of persecuted in China, but he's been a Christian since the 90s, and I remember he went to his local church in his city, and he had a falling out with them because his interpretation of the Bible was, no, I can have my personal relationship with God. I don't need the church to tell me what God says. I don't need the church to dictate to me how I have a relationship with God. But I think his church, because they were more powerful, they probably had their own beliefs. They were telling him, no, you have to keep coming to church. You have to keep doing this and that. And it was probably a pretty stressful time for him. But eventually he just let the church go, and he kept his relationship with God, and he's still very happy, a very good Christian. So I think that's a pretty good story, but it's also a good example of sometimes, you get power in the wrong hands, the evil you're talking about, it can take many forms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up Catholic, but I'm a happy Protestant now, and that's one thing I really like about Protestantism, although a lot of Catholics that I like to feel the same way, is that these small groups, like if you look at early Christians, they were meeting in houses, and it was just a few people. And then just from a practical standpoint, like, yeah, it is something that's very, very individual to me, but then I feel compelled to go out with, like, I like going to church, but it's also, like, I think it's probably very different from your relatives experience where it's a very small, poor church. There's only a few of us, and everyone's very respectful and it's more like we're there to help guide each other, and like if we're doing something wrong, not that everyone, and no one has ever scolded me, but like if the CEO from Goldman Sachs walked in, we'd probably be like, hey friend, that stuff. But churches too, absolutely. Thankfully, in my experience, like in Philadelphia, all the mainline Protestant churches I've been to have been kind of like amazing. I went to an Episcopalian church. Now I go to a PCUSA Presbyterian church, but like the Episcopal church used to hide draft dodgers in the 60s, and like when there were large immigrant communities, like there was in West Philly, I think it was in the 80s, there was a large Vietnamese population that came, and so they reached out and said, like, what could you use? And they said, like, well, like our kids could use help learning English, so they set up these tutoring, and there were gay dances there in the 70s, so that they were always like helping the community at large. So my experience, thank God, have generally been good.
Yeah, and this is something that bringing sort of politics into this, but this is something that libertarians bring up a lot. But libertarians, they call churches sort of charities. They call that what's called the independent sector. And what they said was, before government blew up, before big government really got big, a lot of the sort of the charity work, the welfare, like what you're talking about, teaching new immigrants things to help them out, a lot of that was from what they called the independent sector, the churches, etc. And so what libertarians say is, when big government started expanding, when people's tax monies got taken more and more, the independent sector was the one that really suffered. Because now, instead of being able to donate their churches and having churches help the community, now you have to get your tax money taken by the government. So I think that's a very interesting, I brought in random political science into it, but that's something very interesting that I just, since we're talking about this.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely relevant. I generally am somewhat critical of libertarian views, only because, and I think there are some good points, but I think it's easiest to be a libertarian when you have money.
Yeah, yeah.
Where, the great thing about taking the decisions of, say, like very important programs like Medicaid out of the hands of a small entity, be it a church or synagogue or a mosque or something, is that it's blind justice in a way. And so when the neighborhood controls it, like, well, maybe they don't like Sally, or Sally's a pain in the butt and she's obstreperous. But maybe, you know what I mean? So, like, the great thing about it being the government doing it is that it's private, especially in our culture where there's so much shame, especially when it comes to being poor. So, like, say I need help, I can meet someone or write a letter, but essentially I'm faceless and nameless. I just get support, and there's no shame. And that's I think that's one of the great things about our society in that way. I wish that there was Medicaid for all. I truly believe that's what people want and need. But I mean, I respect, like, so the people I wrote about, Dorothy Day and Peter Morin, I disagree. I love them. I'm a little more inclined to respect their view, which was that churches and especially church communities, not necessarily just buildings, but should support the community, and it shouldn't be the government. But Dorothy Day and Peter Morin also dedicated their entire lives to feeding the poor in their neighborhood, 9 to whatever every day. So while that is definitely needed, I don't think it can work by itself, but I'm more inclined to respect it when people like Dorothy or Peter would write that, because every day they were taking care of poor folks in New York City.
Wow. Let's play that song right now. I'm gonna play it for the audience.
Sure.
I wake up each morning in a newsroom that doubles as my bedroom, which doubles as my closet. I spread the paper thick and neat, and I get to writing of strikes in Chicago, fires in New York, and unrest in Rome. I get to the point and move on.
me more about this song. It's why did you choose these two in particular?
Oh, sure. Dorothy, I learned about Dorothy from my now wife. We exchanged books when we met, and I gave her this Marilyn Robinson book, because Marilyn Robinson is, I don't know if you know her, but she's a Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist. She's my favorite writer of novels, essays. Anything she writes is brilliant. And I gave Natalie, my wife, that book, and she gave me Dorothy's autobiography, which is called The Long Loneliness, which is a wonderful title for a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very moved just by her story and her experiences. She had a pretty wild life. She was lived a bohemian life in the 20s, and she wrote for all of these leftist newspapers at the time, and then she had this sort of spiritual awakening, and then started this newspaper and these Catholic worker houses, which they wrote about labor issues, leftist issues, and then they fed the poor, and they're still doing this. There's houses all over the country. I was able to, or they invited me to play in the fall, and I played some songs from the album at their location in New York City, at the house that Dorothy bought and eventually died in, called Mary House, which was a really wonderful experience. But yeah, they are, the people who live at these houses get a small stipend. They're not actually affiliated with the church at all. They're just their own little community, although, I mean, they go to churches, etc., but they don't get any funding. They're very poor. All the people working there are very poor, and they're taking care of the indigent poor. But yeah, they're great people. And yeah, Dorothy is just a great writer. She's very forthright, and I've learned a lot from her life.
Well, makes sense. And you always write about things you know, or the things that really touch you emotionally. So I guess you picked a good one to write about, because you'll have a lot to say, a lot to just show.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think when I sat down, I think I wanted to write about her, but the song just came out. It wasn't something like I worked. I mean, I edited it, but it just came out very quickly because she was on my mind for a while.
I see. So, is your wife also a musician? Or, I mean, I assume if you guys are exchanging books, she's probably something related to literature, something related to humanities, right?
Yes, she's not a musician. She works now for a company it's a nonprofit that does financial counseling for low-income people, or for people whose banks have sort of hosed them over the years with their mortgage. And so they provide support for them and try to help them. She's a humanities person. She loves the arts, though. She loves music. We have fairly similar taste in music and literature.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's actually very nice to bounce ideas off of Natalie and get her input on things. And it shows for performances as well, hearing what she liked or didn't like. It's very nice. It's a nice perk.
That's good. When you guys got married, did you sing a song at the wedding to her?
I did not, no. I had a friend who played cello, or a cellist friend to play her instrument in Thursday. But now, besides that, I was just groom man for the day.
I see. Awesome. So, tell me about the next album. What's the inspiration? What's the topic, etc.?
Sure. So, same thing. It's not the same topic. The same procedure. I sat down and just thought I would just write about what I wanted to write about and what came naturally and organically. There isn't like this last album where there was. Then the last album is called Time Without Measure. Like with these songs that you played, there was that sort of theme that ran like a ribbon throughout the album. The material I'm working on now, there isn't. It's more just song by song. There's certainly things that they have in common, maybe that topics, but it's more each song is a little bit of its own universe. And when I did that, I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but I'm liking how it's going. So writing the album has been very fun. Because I've been writing for so long, sometimes it never became mature, but I think sometimes it would I would get lost in the minutia. Whereas with writing this, I really wanted it to be fun throughout. So it's not necessarily light in terms of the musical material, but I very much enjoyed writing it, and I think in some ways it's more complex. So I'm pretty excited. I've been playing some of the songs live, and it's been good to get people's feedback, and I've been sending them to my friends about songs I should cut, which songs I should retain. So I really want it to be great, and so I've been writing it over a year now.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to ask you a technical question about songwriting, because I've tried to write songs in the past, and my problem is I can't form a harmonic structure, so I can't really hear the melody I'm trying to do. I can write a poem, right? But I can't really hear the melody. What's your procedure? How do you hear the tune?
Oh, sure. So I go about writing in different ways. When I first started, and I think this is how a lot of people write, you just sort of pick up a guitar until you have something good sounding, and then you improvise a melody over that, which always works well. For the last album and for a lot of the stuff I'm writing now, I actually start away from my instrument, and I just start with the words and a melody. So I start with the melody, and then I work backwards, and then I add the harmonic structure. After that, it's a very fun way of writing because it keeps things loose. Like when you do it and you have the music written out first, basically your whole timeline is delineated before you. But if you just have the melody, then you have pieces and you can move them all over the place, and it's much more flexible.
I see. Now, do you hear melodies in your head and you have to quickly sing them down or note them down, or do you kind of like, you're one of those, you have a tune in your head, you'll remember it? Because one of my struggles is I might get a cool melody in my head and I'll forget it an hour later.
Oh yeah, no, that's a real problem. Usually my lyrics, or my melodies, are derived from phrases or from small bits of lyrics. So they come sort of organically. The words sort of make the melody, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll record it. So I keep a recorder next to me, and I'll jot down notated music as well. But yeah, that the recording is a very helpful aid.
Yeah, agreed. And thank goodness, I have an iPhone also. So thank goodness now the phone technology is there where if you have a thought, you could write it in a note. If you really have a tune, you could turn on the recorder, turn on the camera and record it. And I think if I ever try to write a song again, I might actually be able to write a song because I won't forget anything because I have no excuse. I have my phone everywhere with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even before, cell phones were ubiquitous, I would just, have my laptop next to me, and once I had something I liked, I would record it.
See, that's awesome. So, what type of music do you listen to, by the way? I know you listen to jazz, but what else do you listen to? I forgot to ask that.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to all sorts of stuff, and I tend to really sort of become immersed in whatever I'm listening to at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not someone who just listens to, 5 albums a day while I'm at work. The last 2 albums I've really loved were this one I've been listening to now by this band called Love from the 60s.
Ooh.
Their album Forever Changes, which is, lots of people love it, and it's an amazing record, so I've been listening to that a lot. I really loved the last Solange album, The Seat at the Table, was really great.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Isbell is a very good songwriter. I've been listening to his album, Something More Than Free, is really terrific.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on, but there's I guess I like songwriters more than a particular genre, or singers like Nina Simone or something. So I tend to go back and forth. I don't like a lot of radio pop music,
mm-hmm.
but all the genres represented there, like old country, Graham Parsons, country music is wonderful, and rock music can be great. But within these genres, usually it's the songs more than I sort of think arrangements as sort of like suits or like clothing for a song, and so I like the songs more than I like the outerwear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. That's awesome. I'm one of those people, I actually don't really listen to music that much anymore. So whenever people ask me that question, I'm almost like I don't listen to music. And it's kind of funny. So I'm always looking for other people's music, just so I can, whenever in the future when someone asks me, hey, what music do you listen to? I can actually have something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I've been that way too. Not with music, because it's my baby, but, you know, with film, for instance, sometimes like with the long form movies, I've mostly just been watching short things or stuff.
Yeah, can you imagine maybe in 100 years when the next generation that's grown up since age 0 with phones, right? Maybe their film will just be something like a book. Nobody's gonna be really watching film because it's too long. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I hope people are still at least reading.
Yeah.
Whether it's text, because I think that really does affect the way you live. At least for me, when we were talking about time, it helps things go much at a slower pace.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can process things. It just fits my person better than a lot of other art forms, or just even thought. It helps me understand things and explain things much better. But I think people will always be reading.
Yeah. And the one thing I do miss about books is that they had the margins where you could write some notes to yourself or some thoughts. And it's not the same when you use a PDF sheet, and you can kind of write notes on there or highlight, but it's not the same experience. And it's not even the same experience with a Kindle or with one of those tablets. So I think books are still gonna be here to stay. Like, anyone who really needs to do a big research project probably needs a few books, or else his thoughts are just never gonna be clear.
Yeah, and I actually only read paper books, so, but yeah, I just love it. I don't fetishize the medium, but it's just more pleasant for me. I'm on a computer most of my day, and I just don't want to be on it later.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be reading. I just need time away from the screen.
And as a day job, you're kind of creative too, right? So you found the perfect kind of balance, because your job's kind of creative, and then you also have time to do your own music, so you're not a starving artist per se.
No, it's okay. I mean, it limits the time. I am very thankful for my job. The music, because we record very often, it's not something that I make money off of doing.
Mm-hmm.
I would like for that to change, but
of course.
Yeah, it's nice that that I'm not starving. That I mean, even I have a lot of friends who, have to stitch together a whole lot of little jobs, and they basically don't have any time to write. Mm-hmm. So it allows me to write more often than I would be able to if I were living that kind of life where I was juggling so many jobs, because that's extremely stressful. Even if you're able to do it, you can only concentrate on so many things during the day, and it's like, oh, it's a Tuesday, what do I have Tuesday? I'm shuttling back and forth between this and that job, and I've done that, and it's not pleasant. So yeah, it's the day job. For even things that I don't necessarily like about it, the good things is it's not very stressful if you find the right one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed. So I guess we can end this with, if there's someone who wants to be a musician or wants to do something in the arts, do you have any lessons you've learned that you wish someone told you when you were starting out?
That's a great question. I would say that don't be afraid to take lessons or to study. The great musicians or songwriters or writers, it's not that they had some sort of talent. They weren't born with some brilliance. If they write music, they probably studied a lot of music, and wrote, and then had it critiqued, and then studied a lot more. My process is basically that I took lessons. And I'm still taking voice lessons now. I just started, and I don't take them very often, but they are very helpful when I do. And then I'd say a third of my time is just studying other people's music and trying to get better at my instrument. So, try to get better if you want to be a better writer, then write, and learn. And I would say also just know what works for you. There's no secret way of doing things. There aren't a special sort of way that once you're locked into that. So I really love the writer Annie Dillard, and her books on writing are amazing, The Writer's Life. But I remember Annie is someone who's sort of a gadfly and loves people, and she would always say, when I write, when you write, you need to go in your room, lock the door, close the blinds, and just write. But I'm much more of an insular person, and so that wasn't necessarily helpful advice for me, because I want to do that in general. And so I found that I needed to take more breaks. So this is just a long way of saying, just spend some time learning how you work best and how you write well and experiment, and don't give up, or don't get frustrated. Just it's writing. It should be something that you love to do. It shouldn't be something that feels like work, and if it feels like work, then you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah, agreed. And I really second your point about taking lessons, because I'm one of those people. I'm a little stubborn. I just keep not taking lessons. One, I don't want to spend my money on someone who might not teach me right. But two, it is kind of like a fear / risk aversion / ego thing. I'm like, oh man, lessons, wow. But you're right. I totally. If I wanted to sing better, I should take vocal lessons. If I want to play guitar better, I need to go take from an actual teacher. So 100%. I'm glad you mentioned this, because once I'm moving downtown, once I finish moving downtown to LA, I'm gonna get back into it. I want to learn how to dance. I want to learn how to sing better. So I'll find a teacher. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I found for me, doing it once a week doesn't always fit into my schedule. But yeah, just when you can, it's been very helpful for me. I wish I had taken it instruments and singing and such more seriously when I started.
Yeah. I
guided.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I said because a lot of my study now is self-guided, and it's supplemented by advice from the outside. But that critique is really just invaluable.
And I've taken voice lessons before. This was in Philly, and I think her name was Laura. It's funny that I forgot her name already, but she was good. She was an opera singer, and she was teaching me how to not use my throat as much, use the soft palate, the area in the nose or whatever. And it was great. And every time I worked with her, I felt like I was making progress. But then, one, I didn't want to practice. Two, my mind was just not there. I was working at Fox 29 at the time in Philly, and I hated that station. That station's horrible. So I just mentally I wasn't there. So when I go home, I'd just be so angry, and so I wouldn't practice. And then when I practice, I wouldn't know what to practice. So what do you do with that? Let's say you're taking lessons. How do you incorporate it into your schedule, your regimen, to make it so you practice and you don't lose what the teacher told you the week before?
Yeah, no, that's good. And I mean, I should say I'm really just starting to do vocal lessons, but I found do it every week. I can't carve out, because I'm still trying to run a band and then work my job. So just having the longer periods of time in between the lessons, you don't feel like you're scrambling, which I totally felt like when I was a kid and I was taking lessons. I had the exact same experience. It's like, oh no, I have a lesson tonight. What am I doing? But yeah, I think it's been 3 weeks since I've had my last lesson, and really just the last 2 weeks I've had time a little bit during my lunch break every day, and I would go through exercises. And yeah, so just carving out enough time for yourself where you can sit down and just relax and be forthright about what you're doing. I'm concentrating on this thing. It has helped a lot.
Yeah. And I think, do you and your wife live in your own place?
Yeah, we just moved in. We live together in a house in Fishtown.
See, that helps a lot, because when I was taking voice lessons, I had like 6 or 7 roommates. So I would get embarrassed when I would practice. So I think that's another thing. Just if you don't have a place to practice at home, find a place where you can be by yourself. Because I'm moving into a place downtown. It's like a studio, so it's just me. So it'll be much more easy to practice whatever I'm, you know, teaching myself in the future. But like even now, I have a roommate and she's very chill, but I don't think I'd be practicing my singing much. I don't know. It's just part of it is like a fear. It's just like you know, when you're not ready, you don't want people to hear you, right? It's this.
Right, which is contrary to practice. You know, the ethos of practice, which is that you know you're going to make mistakes, and that's good.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree. That's been very helpful for me is to have my own space and be able to shut the door and tune everything out and be present completely. So yeah, that is, especially for people starting out, that's sort of key to be able to find that space wherever that space is.
Yeah. And I know Penn has very good music rooms. I remember I think it was my senior year when Penn finished building the music building, but now it's like even as an alum I can go rent out for free, as in I can go rent out rooms for an hour or so. So for those of you living in Philly, you know, you can always, if you're a Penn alum or Penn student, use its music rooms, man. And I'm sure now it makes me think maybe my building that I'm moving into might have a practice room. I assume it does. I mean, it's like, you know, all these apartment buildings in downtown are pretty bohemian because, you know, downtown LA used to not be that good, right? So a lot of artists used to live down here.
Yeah, and I even use those practice rooms that you spoke of at Penn. That's where I am during my lunch breaks.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad we're talking. This brings me back to, there were moments at Penn where I was like so moving along that artist route, and I'd be like hanging out at the Fine Arts Building or something. It's like, I miss those days. And dude, thanks for talking. This is an awesome interview for me.
Oh, thanks, Jay. Thank you. No, this is fun for me too. It's good catching up.
Exactly. And so let's do this. When it's closer to your album's release next time, let's do another interview if you're down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would be great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And if you have anything else you want to talk about in the future, feel free to reach out to me, and then we can do another talk that's non-music related.
All right, no, that sounds great. This was a lot of fun. Thanks, Jerry. I had a blast.
Definitely. So I will tune off for my viewers, but we can keep talking afterwards. So everyone, thank you so much. I will link Eric's band, and I will link all this stuff so you guys can check out his music. And I promise next time if I interview another artist that's vocal, I'll have a better audio setup so you guys can hear it better. So anyways, for all of you watching, I appreciate it. I know you guys love this type of talk, so leave a comment, press a like, give them some love, and then just all the usual spiel I say at the end of every video. Okay guys, talk to you soon.